All right, and welcome back to episode 11 of the Press Coverage Podcast. On this episode for you guys today, we're going to be ranking our top 15 wide receivers in the AFC. And
That's completely wrong. We're actually going to be ranking our top 16 wide receivers in the AFC.
Top 16 wide receivers in the AFC. And on Thursday, we'll be ranking our top 15 wide receivers, top 16 wide receivers.
It's going to be our top 16 again.
In the NFC. My bad. So I just want to start off by saying I have no wide receivers on the Jets, Ravens, or Raiders in my top 16, but also there's no rookies on this list because it's based off of scale of last year, like what we've seen. So yeah.
Yeah, so we did this before with quarterbacks. Now we're going to run it with wide receivers. I also have no Ravens, Jets, or Raiders, sadly, in my top 16, but there's a lot of – the NFC is significantly better, I'd say, than the AFC. This is kind of the bottom of the barrel almost when it comes to receiver play. It's kind of sad when you look at it, but we'll go through it. We'll see what you guys think, and we'll have some arguments along the way, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's really no top tier guys. That's the really interesting thing. Like, you look at the top 3, 4, 5 receivers, you could argue that they're all in the NFC, which is kind of crazy.
All right, so starting off here at number 16, I have Julian Edelman.
Yeah, number 16, I have A.J. Green.
I also have Julian Edelman here.
All right, so I have Edelman here because he's getting up there in age, and he's never really been a star, more of like a slot wide receiver who's been like Brady's security blanket. But he's still a good receiver. I'm sure he still has a lot of good football left in him.
See, I don't know if he does have a lot of good football left. He has produced well. That's the reason he's up here. Last year, even he had like over 1,100 yards, which is crazy for his age. But without Brady now, I don't see him producing that well at age 33, 34 coming up this season.
Yeah, I agree generally. Edelman is good. He's played well, but this might not be his best year. He's towards the bottom of my list too. But with A.J. Green, he just hasn't seen the field in so long, and he just isn't the same player. He can't play through a full season ever. So he's great. His talent is there, but he's old now, and he's deteriorating, and he's never on the field. So for me, I have him lower than Edelman by one spot.
That's the nicest thing I've ever heard you say about A.J. Green, so I won't even argue with you. You just said he's great.
Was great. Let's put it that way.
All right, fair enough.
I agree with you from the aspect of it's like a what have you done for me lately kind of thing. But when A.J. Green is on the field, there's no denying that if he was on the field, he would be in my top 5 in the AFC. But given he hasn't played – he didn't play all last year and he only played a couple games the year before, I have him lower on my list as well.
I can tell you for certain if he was on the field playing, he would still not be in my top 5 of the AFC.
All right, so let's move on here to number 15. I have John Brown.
Oh, I have Julian Edelman.
So I have Mike Williams, which is a name I'm not sure you guys have at all or not.
Yeah, I originally had Mike Williams on my list, but then I forgot about one guy, so I had to take him off.
Yeah, I just didn't really see him fitting here with these guys. Mike Williams, to me, is a developing player, but he's not really there. He's not super polished, and the volume is there, but he's not really capitalizing. So I'm not a huge fan of Mike Williams. As for Julian Edelman, we kind of went over. He's old, but he's still rounding out the bottom there in the AFC.
Yeah, I would say Mike Williams actually doesn't get that much volume, but he's efficient with what he gets. He doesn't get that many targets. They had over 1,000 yards last season. And the season before that, he had 10 touchdowns on not that many targets. So he does take advantage of the opportunity he gets.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that in 2017 or 2018, he had 43 receptions and only had 664 yards, but had 10 touchdowns. Last year, he got more receptions and way more yards, but he's only had 2 touchdowns, which was kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting how that played out. Hopefully he can get it all together this year, though.
Yeah. Well, I have John Brown here. John Brown had probably, I think, the season of his career last year with the Bills. And I'm just a little afraid that his production is going to go down here with Stephon Diggs coming in.
Yeah, I think you're definitely going to have to expect a healthy dip of production there. Stephon Diggs is basically a better version of John Brown, and John Brown was super efficient. I had him as my my next number 14. So once we get into the next number, but John Brown was really impressive last year. He had a career year with the Bills, and he's had a pretty good career. He's a very slept-on guy over the years.
Yeah, so John Brown actually didn't make my list at all. I think he did produce well last year, but mostly because of the just terrible weapons in Buffalo. He was the best option there. But I think once you put Stephon Diggs in front of him on the depth chart, you'll see his production drop off a lot.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair to say. But yeah, moving into 14 lead, you have John Brown. I have AJ Green.
I have DJ Chark here.
Wow, DJ Chark kind of low. Why is that?
I mean, he barely got over 1,000 yards. It's his second season in the NFL. His rookie year, he didn't do much of anything. So I want to see a little more from him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I think him and Minshew are gonna work really well together again this year. You saw it last year, and I think he's really the number one down there. If they can pull it together, I don't see any reason why DJ Chark can't be like a very good wide receiver in this league. And I'm sure they're gonna have to pass it a lot again this year because they're gonna be behind a lot.
Yeah, I
Will be
have
behind.
DJ Chark higher for sure. I just think he's proven it all. His breakout year was last year. He's only going to go up from there.
Yeah, we just got to see it out of him again this year, I think. Moving on to number 13 here, I have Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, number 13, I also have Brandon Cooks.
I have Tyler Boyd. And but as far as Brandon Cooks first, I think you guys have him a little low, personally. Other than last year where he had concussion issues, so he didn't get to play as much, he's been getting 1,000 yards every season his whole career, and he's just been traded around the league, so people forget how good he is year in and year out.
Yeah, I've always wanted to believe in Brandon Cooks, and he's always been good, but he's also always been in pretty great situations, and he's always had amazing quarterbacks to get throws to him. He's started out his career with Drew Brees, then he went to Tom Brady, then he had a Super Bowl Rams team, and his one down year was the year that Jared Goff wasn't playing up to his full potential. Now he's going to have Deshaun Watson. He's also always had great quarterbacks. He's always been a fast guy on good teams. I think that's why he's accumulating all those yards. He's fine for what he is, but to me, he's just kind of a mid-level starter.
Yeah, I feel like he's like – yeah, I agree with what you said. He's not really elite, and we don't have him as an elite ranking. But I feel like being bounced around to all these different teams, I feel like that has to do like I feel like people who know a lot more about football than us are like judging him by that. And I mean, he's fast. I don't think he has the best hands, but he scores touchdowns. He's not a bad wide receiver. I just have him a little bit lower than some of these younger guys who I think have higher ceilings.
But yeah, you can say that evaluators think it's okay to trade him, and that's fair. But you have to look at the compensation they're getting every single trade. Even this year, after his down year, it was still a second-round pick in return. And the two trades before that were both first-round picks. So obviously teams do view him highly. Teams keep trading back for him. And other than last year and his rookie season, he's had 1,100 yards, 1,100 yards, 1,000 yards, 1,200 yards. Those are the 4 years in the middle. So you can say that he's been in great situations, but he's basically done everything he can to show that he's at least good. And obviously, I'm not saying he's great. I have him as a mid-tier AFC receiver, which doesn't mean that much, but I think he's better than you guys think.
Okay. Moving on here to number 12, I have Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, I also have Tyler Boyd.
So I have AJ Green here. Like we already talked about AJ Green, how he would be higher if he could stay healthy. So it's all about where you rank him based on that. So he's difficult to place. Let's talk about Boyd. We all have him in about the same spot. And statistically, we might have him a little too low, but it's kind of about his impact on the game. Last year, he just kind of got garbage time targets. He was the best receiver on the worst team in football, so that doesn't mean too much.
Yeah, I think generally Tyler Boyd is coming here. He's taking AJ Green's job over, and he's doing well enough at it. He puts up stat. He's just kind of a filler guy. He fills the role fine. He's a big play dude, but he's really nothing super special. But his stats speak for themselves. I think he fits mid-range here in the AFC.
Yeah, we probably do have him a little bit low based on his stats because he is a guy who kind of got thrown into a shitty situation where he was going to learn behind AJ Green, be this new guy, and then AJ Green goes out. So he kind of got thrown into like a wide receiver one kind of role, and he's kind of flourished there. He lines up in the slot a lot, which is like I feel like why people don't talk about him as much, and he's on a shitty team. But yeah, Tyler Boyd's honestly a good receiver, and I can see him having a pretty good future there now with Joe Burrow. Moving on here to number 11, I have DJ Chark.
Yeah, at 11, I also have DJ Chark. Pete, we have a lot of similar picks.
Yeah, the last three.
So I just switched this now, I had someone else here, but I decided to move Jarvis Landry down one spot, so I have him here at 11.
Ooh.
We talked about Chark a little bit, but again, I think he's gonna keep on working with Minshew, and I think that he's gonna have an even better year than he had last year.
Sounds like you had something to say about my Landry placement, Love.
Yeah, I think your Landry placement is also a little low. I'm kind of curious to see who you have up high on these lists. Your placement of Chark I thought was a little low, but I can see that. I don't really see Landry being this low. He was great the past 2 years in Cleveland. He was one of the best receivers in the NFL in Miami with hundreds of catches each year. It's weird that you would have him there, so I think maybe if you could just take that.
So as far as his Miami statistics, to me, they were never that impressive because of his like how the depth of his target was always very low. Like he was averaging like 4 yards down the field at one point in one season per target. So like, all he's doing is running up and turning and getting the ball. In Cleveland, he was a little more impressive, but when you line up opposite Odell Beckham and he's getting a lot of attention, it's not too difficult to put up numbers, in my opinion. And he was a good focal part of the offense last year, but the Browns' offense overall should have been better than it was. So I don't know. To me, he's good, not great.
I mean, I don't think it's fair to hold his how far his receptions were off the line of scrimmage against him because he was a slot receiver and he took those small gains and he turned the ball upfield and had 1,000 yards just about every year.
Yeah. As far as Miami, just it's to me if you're catching 112 balls. In 2017, Miami, he caught 112 balls and didn't break 1,000 yards, which is insane when you have receivers who catch 60 passes and break 1,000 yards. It's just, to me, it takes less skill. Obviously, it's important for the team. You are producing numbers, but I just think some of the other guys have more important roles on their team.
That's fair. I have Jarvis Landry at number 10. So
for me, it's just the stats don't really tell the whole story, and I look at it as a holistic view of the player. And Jarvis has really proved every year that he's a competent starter and he's a top-tier guy and is able to handle this sort of volume and makes the flashy plays and does everything that's asked of him on every offense he's been a part of. And the fact that he's only been on shitty teams and is still putting up all these stats and numbers has really been something to show for. And I have him a lot higher than it seems like you guys do.
Yeah, I would say the best argument for Jarvis is last season was pretty impressive. If you're going to beat something like that, then I'll definitely move him up on my rankings. But we'll see what he does this year.
All right, moving on to number 10, I also have Jarvis Landry, and I'm just going to say something quick about him because you guys just talked about him. But I just feel like Landry has like some of the intangibles when it comes to like his great catching abilities and his breaking of tackles. Like you cannot tackle that guy once he gets the ball in his hands, and he's just explosive once he gets the ball.
Yeah, for my number 10, I have A.J. Brown. And I'll go.
I also have A.J. Brown here at 10.
Okay. A.J. Brown had a really good start to the year. He wasn't given a lot of opportunity, but the opportunity he did get, he was turning in huge plays, lots of catches for big yard touchdowns and through the air, big explosions. And then he ended up getting a much more solidified role in the Titans offense with Tannehill at the helm, leading them to the playoffs. He wasn't the focal point of the offense with Derrick Henry, but he put in a really good year, and I think that nets him the 10th spot.
Yeah, on top of his catches, he looked like a man amongst boys on the field. Like, they just couldn't bring him down. He's fast and can get open, but also it's just he's so large and people can't tackle him. And I think having 1,000 yards as a rookie, especially on a not very pass-heavy offense, is very impressive. And I think he's going to end up being a lot higher in the future if he can keep getting better.
Yeah, I definitely don't agree. I don't disagree with you guys here. I have A.J. Brown at my number 9 spot. But, yeah, he's just a physical guy. Like, as you guys said, he cannot be tackled. But coming out of the draft, like, everybody was talking about DK and how he's a physical beast. But A.J. Brown's a physical beast too. And he got picked higher than DK for a reason. And I think that in a year or two, we'll see A.J. Brown be a lot higher on this list.
Yeah, that would probably be the case. And I think he definitely deserves it. But moving into the next spot, then, I would have my number 9 is T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, so my 9 is Devontae Parker. I know Pete's not going to like that very much, so we can have that discussion.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of the placement here with Devontae Parker. I think that last year he showed that he is just getting started. I know it took him a while to get started, but having Tua come in this year and having Fitz again last year, and he'll probably start this year again. I think that they're just going to work on their chemistry, and Devontae Parker showed last year. In the last 7 weeks of the year, he led the entire league in receiving, better than Michael Thomas, better than all those guys, and I think he's going to build on
You know
that.
who number 2 probably was?
Who?
Rashad Perryman.
It was Michael Thomas.
Okay, Perryman's probably up there, at least over the last 5 weeks.
He wasn't top 5.
Okay, well, if you look at the last 5 weeks, I'm sure he was.
Yeah, I'm sure he was. But yeah, Parker had like 700 of his 12,000 yards, or 1,200 yards at the last 7 weeks of the year.
Yeah, so let me just go with this real quick. I've always been high on Parker. If Leb remembers a few years ago, we would always debate, and I would be on the pro side about Devontae Parker. But to me, I'm just not going to overreact to one season just yet. I have him at a very good place because he had a great season. But this was his first season over 800 yards in his whole career, and he's played for, 5 years now? Mm-hmm. So to me, I'm not going to overreact to him having one great season when he did finally put it all together. But I want to see him do it again before I put him higher. But again, I think I've got a pretty fair spot. There's just a bunch of really good receivers ahead of him.
I'd say it's interesting we switched sides on Devontae Parker now. I have him higher than you for sure. I have him pretty high in comparison to these AFC receivers. And his breakout year, to me, was very special. Normally, when a guy breaks out, it's not as explosive as the way Devontae Parker did it, especially on a team so horrible with no offensive line, barely any competence on offense at all. You see this stud out of nowhere come out and put up yard and show all these guys that he's the real best player on this team right now based on last year. Maybe not so much anymore, but he really proved himself and showed up, and that shows, like, going forward for Devontae Parker, I think he's going to be really great.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I agree with what you're saying here, Matt, about, like, you don't want to judge him off his one season. But even off that one season, I still feel like he's a little low just because of how high I think his ceiling is. But
my one thing that I would say about that is basically everyone I have above him has had a season equal to that caliber.
Okay, that's fair. But also, like, you could say, like, he was on that really shitty Dolphins team, and he was easily one of the best players out there. And in those last 7 games when he was producing, it's not like it was in garbage time or anything. Those were all really close games. And in those last 7 weeks, the Dolphins did win about 3 games. So it wasn't garbage time like we were saying before, like Boyd. Like, he can play meaningful football and still produce.
Yeah, so 2 things I'd add about that is, one, the teams the AFC East played last season were not very impressive. So I understand the Dolphins roster wasn't great, but he's beating up on a lot of bad teams. I'm not denying he had a great season, but I want to see him do it again against probably a higher level of competition next season.
Yeah, but in those last 7 games that they were winning and he was producing, those wins came against the Patriots and the Eagles and the Bengals. But
and again, the Patriots and the Eagles towards the end of last year were not that impressive to me. They said that they were big names, but you have to look at who else they were losing to at that time.
I mean, he had the Defensive Player of the Year covering against the Patriots, and he absolutely
you're right. The Patriots game is impressive. The Eagles didn't have very many good corners last season.
That's fair. He absolutely dominated Stephon Gilmore, though. Can't deny that.
That's probably his highlight of the season, I'm sure, that game.
All right, so why don't we move up? We're going to talk about Parker again potentially soon since Peter and I will have him higher. But
I have to wait for Peter.
I had T.Y. Hilton at 9. Pete, you never told us you're 9, I don't think, so.
No, I had A.J. Brown. I said it because you guys both had him at 10.
Oh, right, okay. Well, we haven't talked about T.Y. Hilton. If you guys want to save that for later, we can go up to 8. Otherwise, I can talk about –
I've got Hilton coming up in a few spots.
Yeah.
I'll have him back the same spot.
At 8, I have T.Y. Hilton.
Okay, and then at 8, well, I have Juju. So why don't we talk about T.Y.? We can talk about Juju.
But also at 8, we did talk about this guy already, but I just want to say again, this is where I have Brandon Cooks, which is significantly higher than you guys. And again, it's just because of his consistent production, really.
All right, so let's talk about T.Y. Hilton first. I have him at 9. Pete, you have him at 8. Matt, you have him a little higher. We haven't got there yet.
I just got him up at 7, so one spot.
It seems like we generally like T.Y. Hilton as like a middle-of-the-pack kind of guy. He was always pretty elite. Generally, in his career, he's gotten a little bit older. He has a new quarterback. He's had new quarterbacks. He always puts up yards, but he's a little inconsistent. But otherwise, what do you guys think?
Yeah, he kind of struggles to stay healthy as of late. I feel like he misses like at least 3 or 4 games a season. But being able to play with Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck, or did he play with Manning?
Yeah, I think so for a little bit.
I think for maybe a year or 2.
Yeah, so he played with Manning and Luck. So, I mean, not that I'm holding it against him, but he has had great quarterback play. But yeah, he's a guy who, if you, he's kind of like Landry. If you get the ball in his hands, he'll be able to make something out of it. And he was always a top guy in this division, but he is getting up there in age, and I don't think 8 is a bad place to have him.
Yeah, I like him even up at 7. He's a guy I would have even higher if it wasn't for his injury concerns. You look at 2018, 1,270 yards. And then back in 2016, he led the league in receiving with 1,450. And then the 2 years in between those, he just had some injury issues. So every year he's stayed healthy, he's been a monster when it comes to production.
Yeah, I've always liked T.Y. Hilton generally. Ever since I saw him play live with the Jets, and he had 170 on us. He's been a really cool player, and we've kind of grown up with him. But he's kind of nearing the end of his career in Indianapolis. But he's always been pretty good, and I think he's going to finish strong.
If I'm not mistaken, I went to that game with you, and you told me to bench T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, well, he only had 17 points in standard, so it wasn't like it was completely unbelievable.
No, he kind of went off, I'm pretty sure. All right, so who'd you have here at 8, Lev? Juju?
So I had Juju. I have Juju lower than you guys, I think. Last year was really disappointing. I know he had different quarterbacks, but the Steelers sound like they don't even want to re-sign him, and that was concerning for me. He's a little young. He's not super polished, but he is really talented. So I think 8 fits him here. Maybe a little too low, but Juju for now.
Yeah, I have Juju at 7, so I don't disagree with you. He's very young, and yeah, that last season was kind of a step back, but not having Big Ben is definitely a factor in that.
Yeah, I think we all have him at about the same spot, but I think I'm definitely higher on him than you guys by a little. Mostly just because last season you have to look at the combination of the two things where his injuries and quarterback play was atrocious. So if you take last year out of the picture, we would have him much higher, right? The year before that, he had over 1,400 yards, and then his rookie season, he almost hit 1,000. So I understand that that's opposite AB, so maybe that's what it is. But we're going to need to see a healthy Juju season with Big Ben without AB to really know where to place him.
Yeah, that's another thing that you got to factor in. Like, even if he did have Big Ben last year, would he have still put up all those numbers that he did when he was lining opposite of Antonio?
Yeah, it's just that once you hit a certain point in numbers, it's like you can't really deny his talent. To me, 1,400 yards, you can't say that's just because of lining up outside AB.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's just difficult to analyze him now. He's had one great year, one trash year for his standards. So I think it's fair to just kind of keep him mid-tier and see how he does for next year.
So, yeah, moving on to 7, I have Juju.
I have Devontae Parker.
I have T.Y. Hilton here.
So, yeah, we talked about all these guys. I have Parker a little bit higher than you do. Hilton, me and you had him at like 8 and 7. And who'd you say, Michael?
I had Hilton at 9. Juju was my 8. And now I have Devontae Parker at 7.
Okay. And did I say who I have? Yeah, I have Juju. So.
All right. So we could just keep going then. We kind of brushed everybody. So number 6, I have a new name, and it's Keenan Allen, and this will be the lowest he'll be on any list.
6, I have Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, so 6, this is where I have Juju.
So Keenan Allen, for me, I've always just not really liked him. So maybe this opinion is taken with a grain of salt, but he's going to be with the worst quarterback he's ever played with his whole career now this year. He's going to have probably a lower stat year, so he's not going to look as good going forward, in my opinion. I think he's fine. He kind of reminds me of Jarvis. I don't think he's necessarily as talented as Jarvis, as you're about to find out. He can make catches. He has the yards after catch. He's a good route runner, but he's not going to make big contested catches. He's not a bigger guy, and he's not the fastest player. So these things kind of hinder him, but he has done well with the Chargers, and he's put together a good career.
Yeah, so me and Lev, one of our biggest arguments is always over Keenan Allen. I love him as a top-tier receiver, not necessarily a top-5 guy in the league, but definitely a top-5 guy in the AFC. One of the best route runners in football, he's going to be open. And I think if your main argument for him not being top tier is his quarterback is bad, then that's not really what the discussion's about. It's more about his talent, and to me, that's definitely even a top 30 receiver in the AFC, as you'll see where I put him.
Yeah, I have Keenan Allen in my top 5 as well. He's just a great player. You've seen it throughout his career, and I feel like I didn't even notice him last year, considering like we live on the East Coast, he's on the West Coast. and he just so quietly had 1,200 yards. And I don't know. I think he's a great he's one of the best route runners in the league. There's no denying that. And Keenan Allen's definitely a top tier wide receiver.
I just think he ends up getting a little bit more credit than he deserves. His stats kind of are a little inflated compared to some of these other guys that don't necessarily get all the volume that he gets. He demands a lot of percent of the offense, and it's fine that he gets all these stats. I just think they speak a little bit more of the team and less of his particular talent.
Okay, and at my number 6 here, I had a new name on the list, Courtland Sutton.
Yeah, so this is actually the lowest he is, so we can probably get into him a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Sutton here is too low. I mean, Sutton is one of my elite AFC receivers, seeing as how the AFC is kind of dry for receiving talent, but he's really put together a lot of great highlight reels. He had a great season. He's caught for over 1,000. I think he had over 1,200 or maybe even 1,300 yards.
It was in the 1,100 range last season.
Oh, okay. Well, he had 1,100 yards last season. He had double-digit scores or 9.
He had 6.
6. Oh, okay. Well, he proved it with his talent on the field. He was the only receiver worth note on the Broncos. He played with 3 different quarterbacks in one season and still put together a great year. He really looks like he's emerging, and I have him in my top 5 for sure.
Yeah, so I have Sutton at 5. And before we start this episode, I told Pete I have a guy at 5 who is obvious to me, and he wasn't sure, and this is him. It's mostly like Lev said, the quarterback play was atrocious, and just watching Sutton play, he just dominates DBs. He makes great contested catches. He's a good route runner. He's just big. And I think if Drew Lock ends up being the guy there, he's going to be a special receiver for these next few years with the Broncos.
Yeah, I like Sutton a lot. And, yeah, as Michael said, no receivers were really of note last year besides for Sutton and Noah Fant a little bit at the end there. But, I don't disagree with you guys. He's going to be a top-tier wide receiver in this league. It's just he's only been in the league for 2 years, but he's produced, and he will continue to produce with Drew Lock, I'm sure. But, yeah, at 5, I have Devontae Parker, which I'm probably a little biased. But, yeah.
Yeah, just to me, I have Sutton at 5, you have Parker at 5. To me, Sutton is a better version of Parker. They do the same types of things, but I think Sutton's the better player.
Yeah, I definitely agree Sutton's a better version of Parker. I have Sutton higher, but at 5, I have finally Jarvis Landry.
So I guess you already talked about him, but you want to explain why you have him so much higher than me and Pete?
Well, basically, to me, Jarvis Landry's always been one of those top-tier guys. He's proved it every year. His stats are crazy, and he makes amazing plays. He's out of LSU, he's always been a great guy, but people have slept on him for reasons because of, it seems like, his teams that he's on underperform like crazy. And it's not his fault. He's putting in everything he can, and he's really shown his elite-level talent. And he keeps putting up seasons to prove that, but he's really slept on. So I have him at 5, and I think that belongs.
Since you made the Jarvis Landry-Keenan Allen comparison, which I don't see them as the same player, but you said Keenan Allen gets the targets and the volume because of him being on certain teams, and how is Jarvis Landry not in the same exact situation in that way?
It's not that he gets volume for being on the Chargers. I think his volume that he does get, though, it takes away, it tells a different story than the talent on the field shows. He puts up more stats than I think he would deserve to have if it were based on skill. And I think Jarvis Landry has the skill to back it up.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to completely
For
disagree
me,
with that.
a lot of it is shown when he's so terrible. If you watch those Pro Bowl score wide receiver challenges.
If that's where you're going off of, then I just don't value your opinion.
He can't catch the football with one hand ever. He can't jump. He's unable to catch contested. He's a mess. He looked horrible trying to show off his skills.
Why do one-hand catches matter at all for Keenan Allen's game?
Keenan Allen, to me, just is a disappointment of a receiver, and I wish his stats were able to show that.
He's just such a smooth route runner. He's always open, and that's really what matters most at the receiver position. You have to be open to get the ball.
Route runner, too, and you could argue that Jarvis has better routes.
Why does Keenan Allen put a better production?
Because he's lucky.
Yeah, okay. See, if that's your argument, then you're just wrong.
Keenan Allen's spot, I think he would do better.
I strongly disagree.
But sadly, it's only an opinion. I can't back that with facts because they're not going to trade Jarvis to the Chargers.
I love Jarvis Landry as well, but I just don't see him as being a top 5 wide receiver in the AFC or in the AFC. I loved him when he was in Miami. I think he was better in Miami than he was in Cleveland, basically just because he was that wide receiver 1. But now in Cleveland, he's that wide receiver 2, still lining up in the slot, but he lines up on the outside a little bit more than he did in Miami. He's a true slot receiver, though, so he needs that production he needs the volume to turn out that production. But, yeah, I have Devontae Parker at 5, which is obviously the highest on this list. And this probably is a little bit biased, but I'm just excited to see what he does in the future and see if he can build off those last 7 games from last year. And, Matt, did you have 5?
No, I have Sutton at 5.
Oh, yeah, my bad. Yeah, we talked about them. So we'll move on here to number 4. Here at number 4, I have Stephon Diggs.
So I have Sutton at 4.
And then I have Stephon Diggs at 4 as well.
So
I think the only real difference in these last year rankings is going to be that Levis, Keenan Allen lower. So then his guys are all boosted up one spot.
Yeah, I think Sutton is better than Keenan Allen, and I think that's also a fair thing to say. I think a lot of these receivers are pretty close in the AFC. The AFC is generally worse. For me, Diggs is better than Sutton, but outside of those 4, Jarvis Landry is my 5. That's relatively interchangeable with guys going down to maybe T.Y. Hilton, A.J. Brown. But other than that, it's pretty clear cut going forward. I think Sutton's 4, and then we'll move into the other guys. But he really put together everything. We talked about that already. And you guys have Diggs here, so it makes sense.
I think we should talk about Diggs because I think we're all higher on Diggs than the consensus maybe. Or maybe the consensus is high on him. But if you look at his numbers compared to some of these other guys, it's kind of interesting because last year he had over 1,100 yards. And that was the first time he's done that in his whole career. He's had injury issues and he's flashy, and I think that's the main reason we like him so much is that if he can stay healthy for a full year, he's going to put up monster numbers, and he's had great playoff performances as well. So why do you guys have him so high as well?
In my opinion, Diggs just has the best cuts in the league. Like the route running ability, he's up there with the Landrys and Keenan Allens. But he comes in and out of his cuts so quick, and he makes those flashy catches. And he produced with Case Keenum. Like I feel like him and Thielen kind of made Keenum have that great season. I don't think he's an all-star quarterback, but and now coming in with Josh Allen, who coming out of college was definitely able to throw the deep ball. I think he'll be able to show that off a little bit more, and he'll be a better version of John Brown.
Yeah, for me, when it comes down to grading these really small details, it's so difficult to pick apart who's best at what, and the numbers can be misleading necessarily. But in Diggs' case, he just has that it factor. He's proven that when it comes down to the line, he's able to make that play that can save the season, and he's done it before. And now with Josh Allen, the big arm guy, having a great speed receiver with that it factor, those juke moves, the cuts, the catching ability, he's going to be a great weapon for them in Buffalo, and he's going to put together a great season, and he's a great player going forward.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. I just wanted to hear your stance on that.
So I have him at 3, not to spoil anything, but what do you guys have then?
Yeah, then we can move on to 3. Pete, who do you got?
I got Keenan Allen at 3.
This is where I have Keenan Allen as well. So we already discussed all these guys.
It's a shame you're so high on Keenan Allen, even though Stephon Diggs is definitely better.
I think it's telling that me and Pete were similar on Jarvis and Keenan Allen love.
Well, I think it's telling that me and you are similar on Courtland Sutton, and you should have Courtland
I agree.
Sutton Keenan Allen.
I had Courtland Sutton at 6.
I love Courtland Sutton.
It was literally 6'5", I'm not disagreeing.
He is a Courtland Sutton hater. Just make that known.
I'm really not.
Down to the last 2 guys here, I think we probably have them in the same order. For number 2, I have Odell Beckham Jr.
Me as well.
Me as well.
So I wanted to put Odell at 1. I think he will be at 1 if he can just figure something out with the Browns. Hopefully their coaching gets better and he's actually going to get involved because he is really talented. But right now it's just too hard to tell. He's great, but he's getting older. He's in the prime of his career. He's only going to start declining from here. He doesn't have that speed that our number 1 guy has, and that's really just the big factor here, I guess. I really like Odell. I think he's still an elite receiver, but it's just he's not number 1 right now, and it's sad having to see that.
Yeah, the things stopping him are he just hasn't had the same production he did his first few years with the Giants. like those first 3 seasons having all over 1,300 yards, everyone thought, okay, this is going to be the best receiver in football going forward. And he's had some injury issues, and being traded to a new team hasn't helped him too much. And he's struggled to get over 1,000 yards the last 2 seasons. So he's got all the talent in the world, and I think being in Cleveland for year 2 is going to improve his production a lot, and he'll probably be the second best or the best AFC receiver.
Yeah, I think that the Browns' season last year was just pretty unexplainable. They had all the talent in the world, but they couldn't put it all together. And I think that Baker will be able to put it all together this year. And I think that Odell will definitely have a better year than he did last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope. He's really talented. He's big on social media. He's a big icon for people, and everyone looks up to Odell. With the catch he made, he's become famous, and he's one of the most famous players in the NFL. So everybody's kind of rooting for him, especially in the forgotten zone of Cleveland. So we all hope Odell can pull it together. But number one, we all have the same guy. It's Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I think Tyreek Hill is probably like the most unguardable wide receiver in the league with his game-breaking speed and his contested catch ability. And he has Patrick Mahomes, which definitely helps him. But, yeah, this guy is just ridiculously fast, and he can beat you with speed no matter what.
It'd be interesting to see Tyreek Hill on another team because even without Mahomes for the one season, he was great with Alex Smith back in 2017. But I think Andy Reid also played a big part in that. So it'd be interesting to see what he is without either of those guys. But all we can do is judge him off of what he's done, which is great. I never thought I would have him at number 1, to be honest. But you look at the talent in the NFC versus the AFC. I probably have 3 or 4 guys in the NFC over Tyreek Hill, but to me, he's the best AFC receiver.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking. I think maybe you can make a case that Odell deserves the number 1 spot, but Tyreek Hill just year in and year out has always been great. And I think he really deserves it out of these guys. Like, there's just not – compared to the NFC, it's, like, not really much contention. And he's earned it over the year.
Yeah, he's just – I think Hill is just so unguardable because he makes those cuts, and Andy Reid puts the perfect scheme together for him. So he's not the primary – he's not even the primary receiver in this offense. Travis Kelce is. But he makes it seem like he is with all those flashy long plays that he makes. But, yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for our top 16 AFC wide receivers. Next week, next episode, as I said, we'll be doing the top 16 NFC wide receivers. And I think we had some good debates here. I think that the Keenan Allen versus Jarvis Landry debate was a good one. I think Devontae Parker, I had higher, was a good debate. But, yeah, what do you guys got to say?
Well, I respected most of your list. It was better than I thought, but Keenan Allen, you're just off on him.
Yeah, I think you guys are just really putting a lot of faith into these numbers, and like you just think Keenan Allen.
It's not numbers for me. I've watched this guy play for years.
He's really just not all that, and I think that's going to show only with years to come. The NFC is definitely going to be better than that, though. I have a lot of favorites. The Buccaneers, of course, have 2 of my favorite wide receivers. There's going to be a whole bunch. The whole top 10 is probably going to be better than generally amount of the top 5 guys in the AFC, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, to me, it's crazy that, like, the talent difference, like, we saw it in the quarterbacks, too. The NFCs, we had much higher. But in these wide receivers, like Keenan Allen and Stephon Diggs, I had at 3 and 4 in the AFC. I don't think that either of them would probably touch my top 10.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Keenan Allen would definitely.
Neither would touch my top 5.
But I think Stephon Diggs would probably crack the top 10. Odell will definitely crack the top 10, but they would be pretty low. Like, there's 7 or 8 guys in the NFC that, like, I really like a lot. And Tyreek Hill might not even crack my top 5, which is kind of unbelievable. But we'll have to go into that next week, and then maybe we'll make a combined list of AFC and NFC and see how bad the NFC really is when they stack up.
So, yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up for this episode. Tune in on Thursday where we rank our top NFC wide receivers, and we'll see you then.
Yep, Keenan Allen's the GOAT. See you Thursday.